What began as an ordinary end-of-year diplomatic trip has, according to senior Nigerian officials, transformed into a troubling national puzzle. Vice President Kashim Shettima stepped before journalists in Abuja on the 2nd of January, 2026 to address swirling questions over President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's prolonged silence. The vice president acknowledged that the president traveled to France on the 28th of December, 2025 for an emergency security meeting following the American-supported airstrikes in Sokoto State, but admitted that since that departure, no direct contact had been established. Shettima's statement landed like a political earthquake. In Nigeria's Fourth Republic, even during presidential medical leaves, communication lines have never completely broken down. The vice president revealed that repeated phone calls, encrypted messages, and diplomatic inquiries to Paris had yielded nothing. His phone has remained offline, the usual presidential channels are unresponsive, he reportedly said, choosing his words carefully but unable to hide his unease. He added that he had reached out to the French president seeking confirmation of Tinubu's participation in any meeting, yet those efforts also failed. The disclosure immediately ignited constitutional and emotional alarm. Nigerians remembered earlier years when rumors about leaders abroad triggered instability, from the Yar'Adua crisis of 2010 to speculations during Buhari's London medical trips. But this scenario felt different. There were no photographs, no communiques, no delegation updates, not even from Tinubu's family. The vice president confirmed that even the first lady and close relatives had expressed worry over the president's unannounced offline status. Across the country, anxiety turned into open debate. Political commentators questioned whether the trip was truly official, while opposition parties demanded activation of constitutional provisions on presidential incapacity. The presidency traditionally releases New Year greetings and policy direction. Tinubu's absence from that ritual was interpreted as ominous. Citizens flooded radio programs asking a single question: could something have happened to the president in France? Security agencies maintained guarded silence, insisting only that processes of verification were ongoing. The Foreign Ministry confirmed that a presidential aircraft landed in Paris late December but could not authenticate Tinubu's movements afterward. Independent journalists searched European media for confirmation of any Franco-Nigerian summit. None surfaced. The lack of evidence deepened speculation that the vice president himself might not possess full information. Meanwhile, the context of the American strikes complicated matters. The Sokoto operation had been praised internationally as a blow against ISIS West Africa elements accused of targeting travelers and viciously killing innocent Christians. Some analysts wondered whether Tinubu was engaged in classified negotiations over further foreign intervention and had chosen secrecy. Others feared a possible health emergency, citing the stress of leading a nation battling terrorism, economic reforms, and internal dissent. In Lagos and Anambra, Tinubu's political heartlands, supporters organized prayer walks for his safety. In the north, clerics urged patience and warned against spreading unverified claims, recalling how a TikToker was recently remanded for falsely alleging the president had died. Yet even those appeals could not calm the unprecedented worry created by Shettima's admission. The National Assembly became another theater of tension. Lawmakers returning from recess said they were not briefed about any emergency meeting in France. A ranking senator from the opposition ADC reminded the public how his party had earlier urged Tinubu to disclose his whereabouts for 5 days after the BRICS summit in 2025. Transparency has never been this administration's strength, he argued. The mystery had shifted from mere absence to a crisis of governance. Ministers postponed budget presentations, service chiefs awaited directives on Sokoto retaliation risks, governors demanded an interagency update. The vice president insisted he would continue contacting France and international partners, but admitted he could not speculate on the president's condition. For ordinary Nigerians, the episode symbolized how fragile leadership communication can imperil a nation. Whether Tinubu was lost in diplomatic secrecy or confronting an unknown tragedy, Shettima's broken silence confirmed a painful truth. Nigeria had entered 2026 without hearing from its elected president, and a democracy left without verified information becomes fertile ground for fear. The closing days of 2025 pushed Nigeria into one of the most anxious moments in its recent political history. On the 25th of December, while many citizens were marking Christmas in churches, homes, and displacement camps, news filtered out that a coordinated United States-supported airstrike had hit suspected terrorist enclaves in Sokoto State. The operation, described by officials as part of a broader counter-terrorism collaboration, was said to be aimed at dismantling ISIS-linked networks blamed for brutal raids across the northwest. For years these groups had imposed illegal taxes, kidnapped schoolchildren, murdered farmers, and turned ancient trading routes into corridors of fear. The strikes therefore sounded, at least initially, like the decisive intervention Nigerians had long demanded. Yet military success in Nigeria is rarely measured only by bombs dropped or camps destroyed. It is judged by the reassurance that follows from leadership. In most nations, the commander-in-chief would address the public within hours, explaining objectives, risks, and next steps. Instead, Nigerians encountered near total silence from the presidency. The usual flow of statements from State House correspondents, social media handles, and official bulletins suddenly dried up. No televised briefing was held, no national broadcast interrupted holiday programming, and no photographs emerged showing the president in meetings with service chiefs. The vacuum of information quickly became as troubling as the violence the airstrike sought to end. Communities close to the targeted areas were themselves in turmoil. Survivors of earlier bandit assaults in ISA, Sabon-Birni, and Goronyo recalled how they had begged for air power when terrorists gathered openly on motorcycles. Parents of abducted children wondered whether the explosions might finally force their tormentors to release captives hidden in forests straddling the Niger border. But without presidential guidance, hope mixed with dread. Rumor traveled faster than fighter jets. Some claimed ground troops were advancing, others feared retaliation on Christian villages. Markets reopened after Christmas with conversations dominated not by New Year prices but by the question, who is truly in charge? Civil society organizations soon gave voice to that concern. A coalition of human rights groups accused the federal leadership of abdicating its constitutional role, insisting that international military cooperation must be anchored in transparent national authority. Nigeria's history of insurgency, from the early Boko Haram uprising to the Lekki protests and the Kaduna train attack, had taught painful lessons about how secrecy breeds distrust. The groups demanded publication of the intelligence basis for the strikes, a clear accounting mechanism for any collateral damage, and assurance that Nigeria was not surrendering sovereignty in exchange for foreign firepower. Their statements resonated widely because they echoed everyday experience of citizens who see convoys pass but seldom hear the strategy behind them. The mood in the country at that time was already fragile. December had recorded multiple massacres in Benue and Plateau, and over 100 travelers were kidnapped along the Abuja-Kaduna highway only weeks earlier. In the northeast, remnants of ISWAP continued attacks on garrisons despite repeated claims of their defeat. Analysts warned that northwest terrorism was evolving from crude banditry into ideologically motivated jihad, deliberately targeting innocent Christians, as foreign reports described. Against such complexity, Nigerians needed a unifying narrative from their elected leader. Silence, therefore, felt like a betrayal of the social contract. Inside government circles, aides reportedly expressed frustration as well. The machinery of the Nigerian state depends heavily on presidential visibility. Memos require signature, security budgets need approval, and even New Year honors demand final consent. Ministers who had prepared end-of-year reports were left waiting. The National Assembly, scheduled to resume early January to debate new tax laws and defense appropriations, lacked direction on whether emergency powers would be requested. Governors called Abuja seeking clarity. Diplomats contacted the foreign ministry asking who to quote. The state did not collapse, but it wobbled, like a giant ship whose captain had stepped away from the bridge. Religious leaders sensed the danger. From Onitsha to Ibadan, pastors used crossover services to pray for peace in Sokoto and for wisdom for Nigeria's rulers. Muslim clerics in the north equally urged restraint, warning youths not to interpret the strikes through ethnic or sectarian lenses. Nigeria survives because these non-state guardians often stabilize emotions when politics fails. But even they admitted privately that the absence of presidential words made their task harder. A priest in Awaka captured it poignantly: people can endure war, but they cannot endure not knowing the truth. By the time the calendar turned toward the 28th of December, the question of security had merged with a deeper constitutional anxiety about leadership communication. The airstrike had opened an opportunity to project strength. Instead, it exposed how dependent Nigeria is on a single voice. The nation entered the New Year corridor holding its breath, caught between the thunder over Sokoto and the quiet of Aso Rock. Whether that silence was the result of diplomatic scheduling, technical mishap, or mere bureaucratic confusion, its impact was undeniable. Nigeria was reminded that in crises, information is as essential as ammunition, and a nation left offline becomes a nation left afraid. Nigeria found itself trapped between uncertainty and the dangerous tide of misinformation. The continued absence of verified communication from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu created what analysts called a leadership blackout. In the digital age, silence is interpreted, edited, and weaponized, and that is exactly what began to unfold. Competing narratives flooded Facebook, X, TikTok, and WhatsApp, each claiming exclusive insight into the president's fate. Some posts alleged kidnapping by terrorists abroad, others insisted he had suffered a medical collapse in Paris. A few extreme voices even claimed a foreign government was holding him hostage. None of these stories came with credible evidence, yet they traveled through a frightened population like wildfire through Harmattan bush. The federal government responded by warning citizens against spreading unconfirmed reports. The memory of recent legal action against online figures who falsely announced Tinubu's death remained fresh, and authorities reminded the public that such claims could undermine national security and diplomatic relations. But repression of rumors could not replace the needful act of proactive transparency. Editorial boards argued that the state must not govern through threats but through trust. They demanded that the presidency release airport logs, delegation lists, or at minimum a short video proving life and continuity of command. In Sokoto and neighboring Katsina, local leaders feared retaliatory attacks because terrorists often exploit political confusion to strike soft targets. Economically, the impact was equally severe. Investors who had welcomed Tinubu's new tax laws scheduled to begin the 1st of January, 2026 grew nervous. The naira weakened on parallel markets as speculators interpreted the constitutional ambiguity as a risk to reform momentum. Governors complained that federal allocations for security operations were delayed due to unsigned approvals. Families of kidnapped victims across Nigeria, from Chibok survivors to newly abducted children along the Kaduna Highway, felt abandoned, saying the drama in Abuja was distracting leaders from rescue missions. Opposition parties turned the mystery into political capital. The Labour Party and ADC jointly issued a call insisting that Vice President Shettima should invoke sections dealing with presidential incapacity if the president remained unreachable. They argued that even Tinubu's family not knowing his way about was evidence of emergency. Supporters of the ruling APC countered that the president might be engaged in classified diplomacy with France and AFRICOM following the Christmas strikes that Trump said targeted militants viciously killing innocent Christians. Yet without proof, defense of secrecy sounded hollow. Religious and community groups attempted to fill the moral gap. Churches organized fasting for national stability while Islamic scholars urged youths not to convert confusion into ethnic hatred. They reminded Nigerians that the real enemy remained terrorism, not politics. But parents in Benue, Plateau, Anambra, and Borno cried that people were dying daily while leaders debated photographs and phone connections. Internationally, diplomats expressed concern over governance continuity in Africa's most populous nation. ECOWAS officials asked for clarification on who authorized further foreign military cooperation. French media reported no formal statement from the LSE confirming any emergency meeting with Tinubu, leaving Shettima's inquiries unanswered. By late January, Nigeria's anguish had turned into collective anger. Citizens insisted that whether something happened to Tinubu or he decided not to talk to anyone, the Constitution and the people deserved truth. Silence had become heavier than the bombs over Sokoto. The nation learned again that democracy survives on communication. Nigeria stands at a decisive crossroads in the opening moments of a new year. The American-supported airstrikes carried out in Sokoto State on the 25th of December, 2025 were presented as a bold step toward dismantling ISIS-linked terrorist infrastructure and restoring stability to the long-suffering Northwest. That operation, regardless of its military outcome, has reminded the nation that security is the first purpose of government. No reform, tax policy, or diplomatic ambition can have meaning while villages are emptied by bandits and highways are ruled by fear. Nigerians therefore look to Abuja not merely for explanations of past actions but for clear commitment to protect innocent citizens of this country. The federal government must immediately do the needful by placing the safety of the people above all political calculations. Terrorists have evolved from disorganized criminals into coordinated forces imposing illegal levies, abducting children, and murdering farmers who feed the nation. The response cannot remain occasional bombardment. It must become a sustained national strategy that combines air power, intelligence-driven policing, border control, and community protection units. Security agencies should deploy permanent rapid response bases across Sokoto, Katsina, Zamfara, Benue, Plateau, Anambra, and Borno so that no community feels abandoned when under attack. Every Nigerian life matters equally, whether Christian or Muslim, north or south, rural or urban. Transparency has become another pillar as essential as ammunition. Periods when the president or key leaders are away for diplomatic engagements or health reasons require open communication to prevent rumors from destabilizing the republic. The Constitution anticipated such moments by creating offices of the Vice President and Federal Executive Council. Those institutions must be strengthened so governance continues seamlessly. Nigerians deserve timely broadcasts, verified photographs, and official briefings whenever major security collaborations occur with foreign partners like France or AFRICOM. The state should speak first so misinformation does not speak loudest. The National Assembly must rise to its historic duty. Lawmakers should review legal frameworks guiding foreign military cooperation, rules of engagement, and compensation mechanisms for any collateral damage. They must provide emergency funding for victim support and insist on oversight of defense budgets. Opposition and ruling parties alike should remember that the real adversary is terrorism, not politics. Governors pleading for allocations should receive prompt attention, and service chiefs awaiting directives must be empowered to act within constitutional boundaries without bureaucratic delays. Community and religious leaders should be integrated into the security architecture. Churches that organized Christmas relief and mosques that preached restraint proved again that Nigeria survives on its moral guardians. Government should formalize town hall intelligence desks where citizens report suspicious movements safely. Parents of kidnapped children must not feel their anguish is secondary to tax debates. After the new laws implemented on the 1st of January, 2026, economic gains should translate into better equipped police, drones for forest surveillance, and welfare for officers risking their lives daily. Diplomatically, Nigeria must engage the world from a position of dignity and clarity. The appeals made by the Vice President to international counterparts should be matched by institutional protocols ensuring that the Presidency, Foreign Ministry, and security services maintain unified records of presidential trips and delegations. French authorities and ECOWAS partners must see a Nigeria that communicates responsibly and guards sovereignty while welcoming assistance. Most urgently, the government should launch a National Protection Operation 2026 with the following immediate steps. 24-hour presidential and security broadcast addressing Sokoto strikes and next phases. Deployment of joint task forces to every high-risk community. Opening of border corridors with Niger under strict control.